listening to episode 42 of the Confident Writer podcast with Jane Pike. Oh my word, I am about to break all of the podcasting rules and take you outside because it is sunny and glorious, and I am going to soak it up while the opportunity presents. Consequently, there might be a few background noises, a few little cars, some birds probably, but we'll just take it in our stride. You know, something else I learned recently was that for whatever reason, I am compelled to eat chocolate before I press record. And I was reading something recently about, it was an article of a radio producer, and they were talking about the things that you shouldn't eat prior to going on air. And chocolate was one of them. And I'm like, yep, that's right. I can see how that is, because it's kind of like, I don't know, just observe how you are after eating chocolate and then think about pressing record on, on something and decide whether that's a good idea. But for whatever reason, chocolate doesn't have that smooth vibe afterwards that encourages hitting record on a microphone. So now that I have filled your ears with that useless knowledge, let's get started on some other stuff, what it is we're going to talk about in this episode. And I think it's just going to be a story time episode today that links into a couple of weeks ago when I talked about the Brave Bucket Challenge, because the whole purpose of that challenge was to put some deposits in my Brave bucket so we could show up at the clinics that I have coming up in the best head and heart space possible. Now, that said, the first of those clinics was on the weekend, a 3-day clinic that was held in Cromwell, which is in beautiful central Otago in New Zealand. For those of you who are in New Zealand, you'll know where it is that I mean. For those of you not and you haven't been there, it's truly one of my most favouriteest places in the world. And I camped. You guys, I camped. I want to flag this up as the first thing that we talk about, because this perhaps is the most monumental thing that's happened. I'm not a natural camper. My family looked at me like, this is not going to go well, when I told them, you know what, I'm going to start camping at clinics, because it's been a while since I actually went out to any clinics and training events and competitions. Haven't been to any competitions, but you know, the kind of like thought process is there. I haven't been doing any of that for a while, simply because I haven't been able to. I didn't have a horse for it. My kids were really young. And now all of a sudden I'm in this phase where I'm like, what do you know? I've got a horse going under saddle. These things are possible for me. And that feels so exciting, because yeah, it's been a while between drinks. So that said, as we all know, things add up in the ka-ching department. And when I was doing the figures in my head, not my strong point, but I do have the capacity to add things up, I recognised that, well, things were getting a little bit expensive. And so camping in my horse trailer, or float as we call them here, seemed like the obvious choice. So I set myself up. I spent my spleen at Kathmandu and got myself kitted out. My husband looked at me with a very specific look of, I can't believe you just spent that money on something that you're only going to use for one night. And so that really fuels my determination to make this something that's part of my DNA. The whole horse trailer camping experience is going to become my thing. And I am as pleased as anyone to say it was a raging success. I think it's probably amplified by the fact that I haven't camped since I've had children, and just the peace and the fact that you can make coffee when you want to, make a cup of tea when you want to, lie in my hammock. I bought a quaddock. I don't know if you've heard about them, but I bought a quaddock, which is like a hammock that goes in the stalls where the horse would naturally stand. So that slings up, and total points from me, 10 points. It was really comfortable. Got like a mat underneath it. Anyway, you can tell I'm really excited. And when I came home, I had that amazing celebratory moment where I'm like, hello, welcome home to the camper. And they were like, yeah, we really didn't think you'd see that through. And I'm like, genuinely, I enjoyed it. I loved it. The other thing, someone said to me, this is totally going to happen as well, I think you're in danger of becoming a clinic junkie. I'm like, I am. I think not only am I in danger of it, but I think I actually am a clinic junkie. So enjoyable. It's like a holiday where all you have to think about is yourself and your horse and the awesomeness that's coming at you, and then socialise with other people of like minds. I mean, what better thing is there to do with your time? Needless to say, I had a fantastic time. The clinic that I went to was a légèreté clinic. That is the School of Lightness. It's founded by a French horseman called Philippe Carl. I highly recommend checking out his work. And the instructor we had was from Australia, Susie Walker, who is a licensed instructor of l'école. I could be getting it wrong. A licensed légèreté instructor. I won't big note myself enough to think that I'm going to get the entire French phrase right. But it's a beautiful, beautiful system of training that really emphasises harmony, balance, working with the horse in a way that allows for their optimal health and happiness, basically. So anything along that line is totally great with me. And we really learnt some great stuff. I was a little nervous at the start, I guess you could say. And one of the primary reasons why I felt that way was because I hadn't worked with Susie before. And I'm a bit picky. You know, we get a little bit picky about who it is we want to show up in front of the more we get into how it is we want to be working with our horses. But Susie was nothing but fabulous. She was compassionate and empathetic and highly skilled. So I felt really, really fortunate to be working with her and learning from her. And the group of us who went to this particular session are going to get her out every 6 months. So that's something to look forward to. Yeah, I've been already applying the things at home. The reason that I wanted to bring up this story was because there's one particular jewel within here that really hit home for me. And there's a lot of other things I think that apply. So many of you have been going through this Brave Bucket Challenge with me, and that's always going to be available for you to sign up to. So if you go to my website, confidentrider.online, you will see on the homepage the possibility to sign up to the Brave Bucket Challenge, and that's 21 days of bite-sized videos that help you incrementally expand your comfort zone. Great stories coming off the back of that. But just to recap, I know I said it at the start, the whole purpose of me putting this together in the first place was having this understanding that I really need to bust out of my zone also. And going to the clinic in and of itself was kind of a big deal for me and Dee, because we had been doing a lot of our work in the round pen, getting that foundational stuff down. And then we went into the arena, and that was obviously, a step out into a bigger space and asking a bit more and all of those things that come with progress with young horses. And then to go out again and ride in this huge arena that was in the middle of a race course. It was 100 metres by 100 metres, and there's stuff going on, not only that, but just actually getting out and about was a thing, because that's something that we haven't been doing a lot of. And actually, one of the things that I took away from the clinic was, on reflection, it wasn't the material that was challenging, it was actually the environment. Being able to produce the same level, quality of work that we do at home in a situation that's unfamiliar to both of us is something that we haven't practiced a lot of. And I know this is something that comes up not only in clinic situations like mine, but also in competitive situations. And there are so many things that we can do from a mindset perspective to be able to help with that adjustment. However, on a practical level, on a planning level, you really need to be looking at what pushes your buttons and then seeing how you can normalize that for yourself. For me, I was like, girl, got to get her act together. And I've decided that I have another clinic coming up in 3 weeks with Patrick King. It's in the same location, which is actually super cool, because now I have it in my head what's going to be there, and, I've got the lay of the land down. So I want to get out at least once or twice a week and make that part of my regular routine. I want Dee jumping on the float and coming off at the other end and working and jumping back on the float and coming back home to be as normal as us leading from the paddock to the arena and doing some work there, or going out for a ride on the inlet, or wherever it is that we may be. And I recognise that I haven't been putting enough attention or you kind of like enough energy behind making that happen. I think all of us can get super complacent about working in our regular spaces because it's easy. And not only that, but it's maximizing the use of our time. Like for me, working in the weekdays and having my family, there's very narrow windows of opportunity that I can think of that would organically arise to facilitate that sort of thing happening. So what I recognize is that I actually have to grab those pockets of time and pre-plan and pre-organize them. If the same is for you, I want you to have a think about, like, what is it that I need to do to normalize something that currently feels abnormal or expands my comfort zone in some way, which is, just something that we can get a little bit more familiar with. So that's part of the plan for me. The big principle, I think, that I wanted to share with you now, and this is something that I actually outlined for this is going to challenge me now, maybe day 19 it could have been day 18 of the Brave Bucket Challenge, and that is isolating what I have identified as day 2 syndrome. Day 2 syndrome. You won't have heard of it before unless somebody else has called something else day 2 syndrome. But I have been now to, I think this is the second clinic I've been to with Dee that has been a 3-day clinic. And typically, because of the way that the clinic format has rolled out, I've been doing in-hand work or groundwork on day 1. And that's, for us, something that we're really comfortable with and familiar with. In-hand work, groundwork forms a big part of my training. And I actually intentionally set out to just do in-hand work on the first day of the clinic with Susie, because the primary intention that I had in my mind was to give Dee and myself a positive experience, a happy experience. So if I could take him out there and have him feel, fundamentally the same as he does at home, I would think that that was a huge win. And that's actually what happened. It was fantastic. I had this really great moment actually when I was talking about leading him over to the arena in the first instance. And I said, it was interesting because he got quite big looking at some things, and he was a bit boggly-eyed, as babies are at certain things that he was really unfamiliar with. And then we got into the arena and I put him on the line, and he just sort of clicked into work mode, and he was really relaxed and round and lovely, and I just felt so proud of him. I honestly felt so proud of him. And they said to me, the comment was, that's because for him, work means relaxation. And I was like, yes, that is the goal of everything, isn't it? For work to mean relaxation. So that actually facilitated him getting into a better feeling place, which made my heart swell, to be honest. So on day 2, the point of day 2 syndrome. On day 2, we got out there and did a little bit of work, perhaps not the same kind of work that I would do at home. So that it automatically kind of clicks you out of your routine a little bit. And then Susie said, do you want to get on? And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll get on. And I said to her, I feel apprehensive because we're in this huge space and he's a little bit on his toes with a couple of things. And to me, I just have to make sure that I stay really relaxed and that we have a good time. And so she asked a few things of us and we did them, and everything was fairly, it was fine. It was okay. He was great. And I came away from that feeling really proud of him and what it is that he gave me out there, but kind of disappointed and frustrated in myself, because I felt in the midst of that lesson, I felt myself hitting that internal line, that resistance line. And the only way I can think of describing it is kind of like a, ugh. When someone asks you to do something, or a little bit more is expected of you, or you're doing something which is unfamiliar and there's also things taxing you in the environment at the same time, you hit that line and you're like, I don't know about this. And that's what happened to me. And I didn't go over that line at that point. Now, I came away thinking, gosh, the quality of work that we did in the lesson was really low compared to what it is that we're getting at home. And one of the key things that really made me hit that line was Susie asked me to push him more forward, or get him more forward off my leg. And as a rider, the feeling was that that could easily have happened. Like, he's very sensitive. He's not dead to the leg at all. It's very easy to get him to go forward. All of that potential energy was right there underneath me. But I was reluctant to actually activate it. I was reluctant to ask him to go forward in a more expressive way, simply because of the environment. I wasn't sure whether that would be a good thing. You know, I was kind of unsure whether I wanted to go to that place. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. And I talked to Susie about it, and she's like, you know, I've been there before. I totally get it. You just do whatever you need to have a good time out here right now. And that's what we did. So later in that day, I reflected back and I felt this, what I now consider to be positive or constructive frustration, or kind of positive and a little bit pissed off with yourself feeling. And I thought, you know, I remember feeling this at the last clinic, because I took Dee to a clinic in, I can't remember the exact date, maybe like end of November, early December, with Ben Longwell, who I have done another podcast with. And that was in the round pen, and that was really getting some fundamentals sorted. We had a little bit of a stuck place that we came to with establishing balance, especially to the right. And it was really feeling rushed and kind of out of control. So I went up to have some lessons with Ben, and he was having a problem-solving clinic that weekend, which we kind of jumped on board with. Now, what happened on day 2 was that we were out there in the saddle, and this huge norwesterly wind came up, and he got a little bit on his toes. And in that moment, I got a little bit apprehensive and didn't perhaps ask as much of him as I could have, or didn't really stay within myself as well as I know that I can to guide him to a better feeling place. And I remember this same feeling coming up at the end of day 2 syndrome, where I was like, I could have done better than that. I could have guided him through that. I could have stayed with him myself. And what happened in both instances is on day 3, I got out there with a fire in my belly of the best kind, where I was like, if I am going to feel that feeling again, I'm going to recognize it, I'm going to call it out for what it is, and I'm going to go to the other side of it, because I know that I'm capable of that. I know that I'm capable of that, and I don't want day 3 to end with this same feeling that I had yesterday, day 2 syndrome. So that's been really super useful. It's been a useful thing, and I think, you know, part of it is experience, part of it is having that understanding that, you know, you could have pushed it and it would have been okay, and that really comes from shared adventures together. So, you know, Dee and I are working each other out in this whole ridden conversation, and he's very new, you know, I'm very new to being out there with him. So there's a lot of dynamics at play that we need to cut ourselves a little bit slack for. On day 3, actually, just to give you some context as well, I said to Susie, when she asked how I was feeling, I said, I felt a little bit cross with myself yesterday. And I explained the same reasons to her that I explained to you. And she was like, oh, I get that. Like, she said, but I won't accept it. She's like, you and him haven't been out before. You know, this is a big deal to take him out into this arena and in this environment. And you guys did a great job, and I won't accept that you felt like that, which was completely lovely and gracious of her, and I really appreciated her words. The reason that I'm sharing this story with you is that it feeds into the plan that I just talked about of getting out and about more, because the main question that I asked myself was, how can I shorten that space between feeling that resistance, being able to sit with it and decide to move to the other side of it? How can I shorten that space? And for me, it was all about riding in different environments. The more that I can ride in different environments, the more that I can come up against the natural resistances that will arise as a consequence of that, the more adept I will get at recognizing it and being able to navigate my way through it at the time. So it's really leaning in to what it is that triggers you or causes you to feel discomfort, and practicing more of that, as opposed to contracting and saying, oh, thank goodness that's over, we won't do that again for 6 months, and then finding yourself in the same place next time. I had another really lovely experience today, actually, where, what's today? So I'm recording this on a Friday. Dee had the day off yesterday, and then on Wednesday I was in the arena and I was practicing a lot of the things that I'd learnt at the clinic. And perhaps the mistake that I made at the time was asking for a little bit too much precision and maybe putting too much pressure on, not in a way of like kick, kick, pull, pull or anything like that, but just pressure in a way that he was feeling a certain degree of mental anxiety that I hadn't picked up on straight away, and that overflowed out into his trot. So in the arena, all of a sudden I found we had this rushed trot feeling, and I thought, okay, I think there's been worry created through what I've been asking prior that's new to him and that is kind of like making him have to think about things a little bit more. And I haven't done enough to empty that out before I asked for a bit more energy, and now here we have it. We have lots of energy. And so it started feeling a little bit yuck. So I thought, okay, let's go back into the round pen. I'm really confident in there. He's really confident in there. We have the physical parameters of the fence to guide us, so I can kind of let him go. And we did some work in there, got him to a better feeling space, got both of us to a better feeling space, and then I called it a day. I reflected back on that session and I thought, okay, I gave up too much of what I had established and added too much of what was new to us. So I'm going to strip it back today, go back to what it is that we know, and then just drip feed in these little bites of what it is that we've been learning and see if we can maintain the relaxation. And it worked. I had the most amazing session where I was just smiling all the way through. And I thought the beautiful thing about establishing a degree of proficiency at a certain level, no matter what level you get at, is that you always have that to return to. And I would say that in any process where you are brave bucketing your way through, where you are expanding your comfort zone and stepping out and progressing, if it gets to a point where you lose that fundamental relaxation, take it back. Step back, go back to what you know. For me, that was actually going right back to the very base where we started and building up from there. And it was a relief to both of us. And then today we could get that harmony back. I could introduce the things that taxed him on Wednesday, and it was a totally fine event. And there was relief. There was relief, there was enjoyment, and there was a sense of success for both of us, which I think is really important. Don't be afraid to step back. I've written a couple of posts about this, which are on my blog as well, but I want to kind of throw it in here because it all relates to the story. And that is, when I was in town the other day driving home, this was shortly after getting back, I just felt so grateful for my horse. I felt so excited and grateful, and I felt so proud of him and the possibilities that we can embrace together, I guess, which sounds so naff, doesn't it? But it's true. I just love him. It's true. It's all true. It comes from my heart. And I thought, I don't want to be in a position in 20 years' time where I'm looking back and thinking I just didn't make the most of it. And what I mean by the most of it is not that you have to go out, like that may not be your aspiration at all, and that's totally fine, but making the most of it within the dynamic of the relationship. Like, I have a horse that has this gorgeous forward energy, these beautiful expressive paces, and I want to use them. I want to allow myself to fuse with that forward and really go together as a harmonious pair. And so that's something that I really need to practice, something that I need to allow for. And the dynamic, I guess, or the line that we are drawing within that is that with any sort of embrace of power or forward, there's power and forward with relaxation, and there's power and forward without relaxation. And the first feels amazing and sublime and like you just want to stay up there forever. And the second one, not so much. So always, always, always the question comes back to, how is it that we can establish balance? How is it that we can establish harmony? How is it that I can correct my position and position you so that the power and forward that we do have or that we do create is also synonymous with coming from this tension-free, relaxed place? Kind of something to muse over. That's what I've been musing over on my journey anyway. So there you have it, a brief, not so brief synopsis of my clinic experience and some of the stuff that I drew from it. But my question to you at the end of this session is, what is your day 2 syndrome? At what point do you find yourself kind of caught in that place, and then on the other side of it, on a reflective side, going, I could have done that, like that would have been okay. How can you actually lean into that so that you are becoming more efficient and more proficient at being able to soften the edges of that resistance and move to the other side of it for the benefit of both you and your horse? So super fabulous, isn't it? So amazing. Our horses. Glorious. Anyway, I'm going off on a whimsical tangent again. So at this place, I will say thank you so much again for joining me for this conversation. It's always a total pleasure. If you want to dive in and do your own Brave Bucket Challenge along with me, then you can sign up via my website, confidentrider.online. And if you're like wanting to next level it, which is totally something we can make happen, Joyride, my online program, is the place to be. confidentrider.online/joyride. A bit of a mind blip there. Anyway, team, have a fabulous day and I'll catch you on the flip side.